In 1999, two young girls in Lagos were just beginning to form a new friendship when they fell in love with a particular location by the beach. The scene shifts to 2009. The girls are now young adults and have just learned that men are trash. As a result, they vow to never let a man get in the way of their friendship. That proved to be a serious pact, as their friendship appears to have grown stronger many years later, but neither of them is married or wants to be. The discovery that men are trash does not deter Uche, the wild one, from wanting men, especially if they are married. But Toyin, the other friend, keeps her in check. It is Uche's sister's wedding, and Uche is taken by the groom's elder brother named Sunday, who is then joined by his daughter and soon-to-be divorced wife, and we can only hope their marriage had seen better days. Uche, who witnessed his cold demeanor towards his wife, is now even more attracted to him, because she prefers her men to have a variety of toxic characteristics. During the bouquet toss, the bouquet is thrown at Toyin and she quickly hands it to Uche. Uche's mother expresses gratitude to God and prays that Uche will be the next person to walk down the aisle. That should keep her busy, while Uche plans to defile Sunday, who is being chastised by his wife for openly picking up girls. Despite her nagging, he did not seem to mind, and when Uche came to him later with a bottle of champagne to lessen his embarrassment, he eagerly followed her through a maze-like structure, where their genitalia were finally covered in pure dopamine. They formally acquaint themselves after becoming intimately acquainted. He had been in the United States, which is why they hadn't met earlier. She extends an invitation to an art opening she has the next day, before Toyin, who had been looking for her, joins them. She quickly deduced that Uche had given in to her weakness before taking her away. The following day, during the art opening, Uche is concerned because Toyin is unreachable. Her married business partner and sugar daddy, Sam, then approaches her in her office to get some sugar before her opening speech. She resisted his advances, but he wouldn't back down, and she was ultimately saved by her assistant. However, that didn't stop him from dominating and embarrassing her during the speech, and Sunday, unbeknownst to her, had been present to observe the entire scene before leaving. She sobs after the show because she felt humiliated, and Toyin comforts her after explaining why she couldn't attend, and also couldn't stay, because she has a train to catch for her doctor's appointment the next day. During her train ride, she watches a presentation about intrauterine insemination on her device, as it appears she is dealing with fertility issues, which could explain her doctor's appointment. Sunday, who is on a business trip, is also on the train and happens to be her seatmate. Even though she knew him, she pretended she didn't, because she has reservations about married people who don't respect the confines of their marriage, and she didn't want to get caught in his web of supposed charm. Because it was a full train, she stayed with him, and he persisted, and managed to get a smile out of her before they acquainted themselves again. At the doctor's office, she is informed of the various tests that will be performed prior to the insemination process, and she is eager to get started because she cannot wait to have a baby. She hopes to take the train back after her doctor's appointment, but Sunday, who was already there, informs her that there has been some vandalism on the tracks, and the train will not move until the next day. Here, he informs her of his job as the leader of the consortium in charge of expanding train tracks across the country, and he went on to flex his Sigma muscles by booking rooms for them despite her objections. A man with his foot down may be her thing, as she succumbs and later has dinner with him. They discussed his divorce, his one-night stand with Uche at the wedding, and finally her singlehood. She reveals her IUI to him, and despite his thoughts, he respects her decision. They then danced, and as things heated up between them, they almost kissed in the elevator, before this smiley couple interrupted them. Not to worry, they headed to her room but were again interrupted by his wife's call, which left Toyin disappointed, and she shut the door on him. Then, while in a steam room, she tells Uche about her ride with Sunday the day before, excluding their romantic time, due to the fact her friend might judge her. Two ladies who were at Uche's art opening then join them on the other end, sneering at Uche, but Toyin handles the situation. Even though they are no longer children, she still has her friends back. Later, at a family dinner with the newlyweds present, Uche's mother goes over the food prayers, with Uche finding a husband serving as the focal point. After dinner, Sunday's brother, Femi, advises him against Uche after learning of her affairs with men from his wife. But his words only go through one ear and out the other because when Uche was about to leave, she invites him for a drink, which he accepts, and they leave together. Uche hopes to make an investor out of him after learning of his job from Toyin. She entices him with her love for art, and he expresses his desire to invest in her, in an erotic manner. They then went on to commemorate their supposed partnership in his car, in the most unusual way. The next day, Sunday goes on a date with Toyin after she called the night before to apologize for how she ended things. Aside from the parts when Toyin receives numerous messages from Uche, the date appears to be going well. They then went to the beach, where she showed him her favorite spot. Hanging out with him has started to stir up emotions for both of them, and despite the fact that he is everything she is against, she couldn't help herself, and they agreed to take things slowly. While Uche, who she believes smashed Sunday only once, may label her a hypocrite. He fails to clear her narrative. This could be due to his lack of responsibility for the directions his life takes, and his younger brother once again schools him of the imminent danger, and he promised to end his relationships with Uche and Toyin. That night, he begins with Uche at her gallery, but Uche has other plans, so he goes over them with her. The next day, he tries with Toyin, but upon hearing her decision to retrace her steps with the IUI, he withdraws his mission, which he is glad he did, because her schedule was open and you know what time it is. The scenes that followed shows the friends carrying on with life happy, unaware of their involvement with the same man, but their fun had to come to an end when Toyin suddenly felt exhausted. They continued to discuss their new relationships without identifying the person they were seeing, before deciding they would each introduce their partners in a week. Sometime later, after giving Uche a check, Sam makes a move on her again, but it's her time of the month. Even though he knows she is lying, he leaves. Sunday, who had watched him go, then goes to the gallery to finally complete his mission. After revealing how he had seen Sam treat her at the art opening, which surprises her since she thought he never came, he tells her how she is worth more than Sam and that he sees her, but not enough to begin a relationship, so she sends him out. Uche, disregarding Sunday's words, returns to Sam, who she thinks she can't do better than. The breakup with Uche consumes Sunday, and despite having dated plenty women, he couldn't understand the pain he felt, so instead of ending things with Toyin, he simply ghosted her. That turned out to be a bad idea, because she confronted him at his brother's house, and he still had to go through with it. Before leaving, she pointed out his cruel behavior, and the newlyweds who witnessed the entire thing were concerned. Toyin, in addition to her heartbreak, had just learned from her doctor that her tests had yielded negative results, and when Uche arrived with a bottle of wine for them to drown their sorrows in, she refused to reveal any of her problems to her best friend. With the two ladies going through different life challenges, they turned to partying. Toyin, who used to be the sensible and stable one, gets too loose and even leaves the club with two guys. Meanwhile, Sunday, who believes he is in love with both women, is in a bad mood before Uche's call about Toyin's disappearance comes in. Sunday immediately arrives with his brother, ready to beat ass. They approach the guys and were informed that Toyin had already left. Sunday recalls where she might be, but before leaving, he begs Uche to take him back, claiming he loves her, and she agrees. He arrives at Toyin's spot and finds her. He is the last person she wants to see, but she has to do with him, because he refused to leave when she told him to. She reveals the content of the doctor's report. Apparently she has stage 3 cervical cancer, and she has resigned herself to her fate. He reveals that his mother died from cancer when he was 10 years old, and he promised to be by her side as she fights the disease, not wanting to lose another woman to it. A while later, Sam arrives at the gallery, but Uche refused to give in to his advances, so she quickly calls Sunday to confirm their relationship and his investment in her gallery, which he confirms. As a result, she terminates her partnership with Sam, and he was not pleased. Toyin then walks in on him threatening Uche, and after he leaves, they both struggle to tell each other their news, with Toyin going first, revealing she has cancer and finally coming clean with her and Sunday. Uche is distraught, but she holds it together because being there for her friend is more important. But that didn't stop her from confronting Sunday at his office.
Sunday!
Sorry, let me...
Bastard. You fucking bastard, you said you loved me.
And because he's a confused man, he tries to feed her more shenanigans, but she's had enough. In the weeks that followed, Sunday did his part with Toyin, keeping his promise to stay with her through it, after which Uche picks her up, with Toyin not noticing the unusual behavior between the two of them. Uche also helps her out at yoga and stayed with her during her chemo infusion at the hospital. The pain she experienced during this time was lessened by having a friend and a lover. Given Toyin's condition, you would have thought Sunday would keep it in his pants, but he continues to make efforts towards Uche. Toyin gets severe morning sickness one day, and when Sunday leaves for work, she goes to the store to buy a pregnancy kit. Meanwhile, Sunday skips work and instead visits Uche's gallery, where he gives her a speech about how Toyin needed them both, and how he needed her. She falls for it, and they end up getting busy, destroying any girl code, if there ever was one. Meanwhile, Toyin's pregnancy test results are positive, and her doctor advises her against undergoing chemotherapy and pregnancy at the same time, so she decides to keep the baby, foregoing the chemotherapy, which Uche and Sunday were initially opposed to, but changed their minds when they realized she was adamant, and that's not to say Sunday isn't excited to have a child with her. As the months pass, Uche, who had promised not to get involved with Sunday, stays true to her word, while Toyin, who is heavily pregnant, pursues her long-forgotten passion for painting. Her decision to keep the baby was not an easy one, especially given her cancer, which, despite taking its toll on her, she kept it to herself. With her to-do list nearly complete, she and Sunday decide to take a vacation. Uche's gallery was on the verge of closing because she couldn't make ends meet without an investor, but she is ultimately saved when a man with an almost made-up name comes to buy her original artwork that could fetch $250,000 in price. Toyin goes into labor while writing on a table and is taken to the hospital, where she demands her best friend, who was at the airport, be present. Despite the doctor's warnings about the severity of her condition, she was adamant about having Uche present. Later, after Uche arrives, the doctors inform Uche and Sunday of the procedure's outcome, which does not appear promising. The scene then cuts back to when Uche and Toyin first became friends as kids, and shows how Uche's mother accepted Toyin as one of her daughters. The scene then returns us to the present, to Toyin's letter to Uche, in which she imagined her demise and wrote her final thoughts. She apologized for interfering with Uche and Sunday. Apparently she had seen them having sex at the gallery when she was there to tell Uche of her pregnancy, although she wasn't saddened, rather happy they found each other, and she reveals she sent the man with a made-up name to purchase the art, and the letter ends with her entrusting her daughter to Uche and Sunday. Uche walks past the painting of Toyin's bonsai tree, she joins Sunday, who had the baby, and they depart for Toyin's funeral. The film concludes with the scene returning to the beach where their memories together began. The movie depicts a complicated love story, one of priorities, scandalous love, close friendships, illness, and the various ways the women dealt with their personal problems while falling in love with a man who had unresolved childhood trauma. We can only hope that the two unreliable parents do a better job raising the child, as the film's ending marks the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to help the channel out. Drop a comment telling us what you think, with a recommendation of what you would like to see next.